I'm trying to think if there was. I was almost envisioning this conversation. I was thinking, what would I want to say? Yeah, just to kind of get out there. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Hello all, my name is Shadia Dougan and I'm a brain tumour survivor. When I was 16, actually, I found out that I was suffering from a brain tumour. And how I found out was actually very, very strange. So after my 16th birthday, what happened was I started getting headaches. After going to the doctor several times, they couldn't diagnose me, so I was constantly being sent home. These headaches were very frequent and very, very painful. And I guess in our community, it's not really known, they're not very aware of. So anyway, I think this kind of happened for 6 months. In those 6 months, I started losing use of my left side. So we actually started realizing that this was more than just normal headaches. But I constantly kept on going back to the doctors and to the hospital, and they couldn't diagnose me. Eventually, there was one day, in fact, some of it actually developed into vomiting. So straight away, my parents thought, oh, she may be pregnant. I don't know if I should say that, but anyway. But we still found out, obviously I wasn't pregnant at the time. I wasn't even involved in anything like that. I then started developing left side paralysis, was unable to function. So I actually got diagnosed when one of the days I actually physically could not get up out of bed. The ambulance were called and they rushed me to hospital, and a black doctor actually helped and sent me for CT scans, I think they're called. An MRI. An MRI scan. During the MRI scan, the doctor actually came to me crying, and it was one of the most one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. He came crying and said, actually, she's got a tumor. I've had this tumor for about 6 months, but it just kept on growing because of the lack of diagnosis. But this tumor was actually a benign tumor, so I think they call it a meningioma. So it's actually just a growth that actually started growing on my spinal cord, hence the loss of paralysis on my left side. So once I was diagnosed, thankfully, thank you for the doctor that actually helped us in the situation. He actually went above and beyond to ensure that I never left the hospital without a diagnosis that day. It was something that was very, very new to us as a family. They say that tumors are hereditary, but it's not something that had ever been through our family. So it was very, very new. Straight away, you kind of just assume death. And that's because of the lack of knowledge. So we were walked through a process of actually having to be operated on and also going through the physiotherapy to help me with my left side. I think for me at the time, I was, like I've said, I was 16 years old. And even at this point, I was at school. It became very hard for me to actually bathe myself at 16. At this time, at this point, I was very active. So I was involved in sports. I was a very active teenager. But my mother and my father or my parents actually had to start bathing me, taking me to school, picking me up. So at this point, I actually started thinking about, okay, what's going to happen with my education? Will I even survive the tumor? So I think from that day, they then transferred me to a hospital in South London, where I actually obviously had to be admitted. And then the doctor actually started taking me through the process of removing this tumor. So that actually was going to take my head or my neck being worked on. I don't know the right terminology to use, being worked on. So I remember actually being admitted, and the day of the surgery coming, and thinking to myself, I was even saying to my mum, if I die, just tell everybody I love them, because of how real the situation was. I think they had also said some statistics on those that had or who survived the process or the surgery. It was very uncommon, or very, I guess, uncommon at my age to even have such a tumor. And like I said, it's never been heard of in the family. There's not much education about it in our community either. So straight away, even my parents are thinking this must be an attack from somewhere. But thankfully, we had the operation. I believe it was about 9 hours. I have a scar actually that is from the bottom of my neck to the middle of my head. And I remember actually, I didn't want to cut my hair. It seems so silly now. I didn't want to cut my hair. There were really minuscule things at the time that I was focused on. But even after that, I realized I feel I was a very confident young lady. But after that experience, I lost all types of confidence. I ended up making certain decisions I don't think I would have made if I didn't have the tumor. So there were even I was very, very, very ashamed of my scar. I hid it for so many years. I disliked the fact that I had been I had the surgery. I hated the scar, and that ultimately made me hate myself. Even after that, I think even the physiotherapy, because as I said, I was very, very active, not having to relearn things that I already knew and comparing myself to my siblings who were very active. I think even at a point, the left side of my face was actually starting to droop. So even things like the way I looked became such an issue for me. But I think at the time I was doing GCSEs, but I was transitioning into college. So I think they put me on a 6-week program, or 6 weeks with the therapist that then helped me actually nurse me back to health. So I was actually ready to go back to college by the time it was September. So you can imagine I was doing exams in about July, but was ready to go to college in September. But I think it took me through a roller coaster of emotions where you're thinking about how you look, what people might be thinking of you, even recovering physically. Will you ever go back to the life that you knew? Things are I guess, just being able to live the life as a 16-year-old. But I feel like it then, led me to different decisions. It made me more conscious. I think I was buying clothes. So a lot of the clothes I had actually in my wardrobe, they became a trend that was just buying things with turtlenecks, collars to cover the scar that I had. Blaming myself almost for getting a scar or going through such a thing. And I think once again, it was just down to the lack of education within our community. But I have to be very thankful as well to the medical professionals. I will forever thank my doctor actually, or my surgeon at the time. And I remember every year or regularly, I would always go back to him and give him chocolates and sweets or whatever, as just thanking him. But now, obviously, as you can see, I'm been nursed back to full health. I mean, I don't feel my body will ever feel exactly the same, but I've got full movement of the left side of my body, and I want to thank the physiotherapist that actually helped me nurse it back to health. I'm not in athletics anymore, though. In fact, I think it helped realize that I was never really meant to be an athlete. And also, I think for me, it was really also educating others within our community about things such as tumors. Because it's something that was, like I said earlier, we didn't really know about at all. So I've even met other young ladies and other young men that have suffered from the same sort of thing. But I'm actually almost like a testimony to say, actually, yes, I went through a brain tumor, but look at me today. No matter what you've gone through physically, mentally, you're still able to overcome it. So educating oneself in certain areas, and I think even just physically, because I think we can almost too soon take an opinion, but I think it was important that there was that constant push to get a diagnosis. So constantly pushing in that area and making sure you're seeing all the professionals and that every box is almost checked. But then also I think being patient with yourself, not hating yourself, forgiving yourself for certain things that may happen to you, and realizing that it's not actually your fault. Realizing that life is not actually over. If a mistake or something happens to you, that you can actually get up again. Even learning that every story or everything that happens to you is an encouragement for somebody else, because there's going to be somebody exactly like you that may go through the exact same thing, but needs somebody that's able to tell them, no, even though you've been through something, you can still overcome it. Yeah, I think that's it.